Every company, big or small, runs on software. Whether you're building software or buying it, Pendo is software that makes your software better. Using analytics to understand behavior across your apps, your team can easily identify how users are interacting with your product so you can provide the best experience possible. Pendo also helps you use this quantitative data along with collected qualitative data to help you understand how your users feel so you can deliver the best product for your customers. Comprehensive data collected through analytics can be used to create personalized in-app guides that can lead users through your software, assisting greater adoption of the product and provide a more intuitive user experience. With robust segmentation, Pendo helps you understand individual behavior so you can deliver communication in context to specific groups of users. Hearing directly from users about their experience provides deep insight into what works and what doesn't. With feedback, you can centralize all user requests and prioritize them so that your developers are focused on building the best version of your product. Pendo is the only complete product platform that combines feedback, targeted in-app guides, and analytics so you can identify and address pain points in the user journey to ensure greater engagement. Whether your users are customers or employees, the power of Pendo is available across web and mobile applications without the need for engineering. Pendo, software that makes your software better.
Welcome back to the Product-Led Festival. Before we get going with the next helping of inspiring content, we'd like to take a moment to thank our sponsors for helping us bring this event to your screens. And don't forget you can access even more content from exclusive articles and interviews to all past and future events on demand, as well as templates and frameworks by becoming a PLA member. Head over to productledalliance.com for more info. Enjoy the next session.
Hi everyone, and welcome back to the Product-Led Festival. I'm very pleased to introduce our next speaker of today, Sumita, who is a Senior Product Manager at Zoom, and will be doing a presentation on empowering execution. So I'd like to welcome you to the stage.
Hi, Caitlin. Thank you so much. Morning, everyone. I'm from the Bay Area, so this is morning, and I'm really happy and very excited about this topic. Something that has been the pillar of a lot of my growth in product management is mostly centered around execution and how, as a product manager, I have sort of empowered execution and how I have nurtured that culture in my broader team. So let's get started, actually. So I guess the question that I really want to have for all of us, actually, and to really think about this is, what does execution mean? So, when we think about execution, we generally say things like, hey, it's about how I do things, how I get things done. So it's a lot about what is being done and how it's being done. And that whole process of what that is sort of encapsulates the entire idea of execution. But when you sort of take a step back and sort of look at our own personal journeys through product or any other role that we've had, it's always sort of skewed. It's either we are in roles where we are hands-on, making something happen. Like, if you were in the development space, you're probably, coding. If you're in a product space, you're actively talking to your customers. You're actively trying to understand what is that one pain point. And, it's about how you execute that idea that you have or that strategy that you have. And if you think about it, when you look at the broader picture, 100% being product, strategy is a part of it. But then once the strategy gets wrapped around, there is so much execution that is left. So I can talk about this from personal experience. So in Zoom, I lead strategic integration. So strategic integrations meaning how we as Zoom live in other ecosystems and how we bring a seamless third-party experience into Zoom. So when you think about these use cases or these broader integrations that we have, executing that idea or executing that what is that seamless experience, and how do admins control it, how do users see it, what are we seeing? All that is a brilliant problem to solve, but the success of that strategy depends on how it is executed. And we let's go deeper into it in the next few slides. But what I'm trying to sort of build the idea is that we've all are skewed towards doing things or getting things done. And it depends on where you are in your career, what roles that you are pursuing right now, and what is the goal that you've set yourself for, say, the next year or two. I don't want to like talk about 5-year goals from now, but what is the general direction that we've thought about? Hey, this is what I want to do. Now, when we generally talk about execution, you could be in maybe an IC role, you could be a manager, but then execution from a very broad sense might mean very similar things. Similar in a sense that seemingly similar things. So maybe the questions that you get asked could be like, hey, what was the thing that you shipped? What was the goal that you had set yourself up for, like when you are an IC and you are the person who is actually executing this broader strategy that you have. So it's about what opportunities it's, and that is really important as product managers. I think it's that cross functional culture that we create, that is where I think product managers really shine. It's about the dependency that you've set yourself on process, because process is that pillar that really helps us make sure that we've hit every point in that execution cycle that we've set ourselves up for. And once execution is complete, how have you sort of aided to that larger growth of the product? So as an I see, probably these are all the questions that either you're thinking about actively, or these are questions that you get asked about. And so there is a lot of emphasis that we put on execution in that place. But once you move, we start thinking about a manager's role. It's about that team, that culture that he or she has set up for the broader team. What is she thinking about? The execution that her reports have set. What are the goals that they have set themselves up for? And setting goals is, I think, a very interesting conversation. Goals are obviously something that as managers that we are actively tracking. It's not just goals. It's about what opportunities did you create for for your reports to actually achieve those goals. It's a goal is always like, you have to meet it halfway. So what is that opportunity that you've created? So what is that process that is really helping your reports achieve that success that they have set themselves up for? So if you just look at this entire conversation, whether it is an IC, whether it's a manager, whatever it is, the common thread there is definitely about execution. How was it executed? What was it executed? Um, Not to undermine the importance or of what a strategy is, but an idea, a great idea, will always still be something that's written on a napkin unless you have a brilliant team to sort of help you guide through that idea and sort of have the world see it. When the world doesn't see it, it is still something that's on a napkin. So execution is something that, as product managers, we really need to sort of emphasize, build that culture around execution. Now, when we say execution is probably very similar, we are thinking about similar lines, similar goals, similar structure of goals that we've set ourselves up to, but uh, it's also very different. Like where you are in your career, that sort of opens up different areas of what execution can really mean for you. So, as an IC or someone who is just starting their product career, execution can mean that there is an idea, there is a piece of a strategy that is being, hey, let's go build this out. So that's the conversation probably a lot of us have started early in our product careers. As you grow a little bit senior in these roles, then you're thinking about creating a vision for yourself. Probably you're saying, hey, this is what I envision this part of the product to look like in the next quarter. And you're actually setting your product to grow over a period of whatever that it is, and you're making sure you're aligning yourself with this broader uh, vision that your company has set us up for that year, or maybe it's a partnership vision. So when you're in integration, it's also about what you and your partners have together agreed upon to build for this quarter. And so you are sort of aligning yourself to those goals or those broader visions that has been set up, or you've been partly responsible for setting those up. But as you sort of grow a little bit older, or wiser in the product roles, then I think it's also about, if you think about it, you have reports that you are actually helping them align to these goals. So you are actually facilitating that process as to how um, your ICs are able to achieve that vision. So it could be breaking down that vision for them. It could be slicing it down and say, hey, let's take this. Let's say, let's break it down and let's see who can handle what is our vision, how are we going to plan this out. Tons of tools in that process that we go through. We do stack ranking and various tools. Different companies do it differently, but at the end of the day, as a manager in that role, you're actually helping execute that vision. So it is your not understanding of what the problem is, but also it's also your understanding of the people that you work with, their strengths, their weaknesses, their cross-functional strength that they have with their broader teams, how much of that peer support that they have. So you're really mentally mapping all those strengths and weaknesses and thinking, hey, this is the best optimal path for me to execute this particular product's vision for, say, Q3 or something like that. But as you grow a little bit more older in these roles, and you're at a place where you are actually setting up those visions or goals for this broader company, you're trying to sort of align it with your company's 5-year mission, and you want to make sure you are hitting those goals with your key alliances as well. So if you think about it, as we grow uh, older in these roles, as we grow wiser in these product roles, it's very noticeable that the scope of execution is also increasing steadily. Although execution, in a sense, is very role agnostic, and eventually we are all thinking about building that strong product presence. So I think we need to think about execution as not something that is binding us together, but it's also something that is helping us bond with this larger team, as cross functional teams that we have. Now, I think as this is this is an interesting thing. I think I always try to talk about this, is like, what is the scope of execution? As product managers, we have our fingers dipped in different things, but what is that core execution? What do we mean by that? So since the scope of your execution keep increasing with the size of your company, the size of the product that you're working on, the scope of what it is that you want to deliver in your set period of time, you're not just thinking about how you are going to execute something, but you're also nurturing this broader team. Because as a product manager alone, stand alone, there's there is not much that you can achieve without having these partners coming together. So on a day-to-day basis, there's like few people that we rely, totally on: engineers, UX, business, marketing, and the list sort of goes, pages and pages. If you start really sort of trying to jot down every single, product that you've worked with, and how many people you've collaborated with, and what it is. But actually, let me go back here. Yeah. But as a PM, you're actually responsible for the outcomes of your team. The input is probably subjective. It could be an engineering input, it could be a UX input, but your goal should be to find that best combination of what those inputs are and how are you going to maximize that output. So the more senior you become, I think the impact you have on strategy, the impact you have on execution sort of grows. And that is where I think freeing up your own capacity and making sure that you have this broader peer community that sort of sits within your, that sort of matches up to your vision of what the execution should look like. I think that is very important. So regardless of what your delegation abilities are, I think eventually you are accountable for what is being executed. So I think relying on those key partners is the most important thing that we do as product managers. So start to think a little bit more about execution. So you you want to make sure there's more cross-functional people in your team. You want to make sure your reports feel encouraged. You want to make sure it sort of aligns with what their vision or their idea of what that execution should look like. So a great leader typically is able to strategize and execute, and is like this rock star probably leader who's like single-handedly able to drive this entire thing. But I think the more you think about it, I think it's also about nurturing that culture, where you think that execution is not something that happens after the something amazing is thought through, or hey, this is what we want to build. Execution is actually part of that strategy. Execution is that culture that we build together. So I think leaders should help us nurture that culture, not just of strategy, but of execution and processes, and all those things that we talk about is something great leaders are able to you know um, set us up for. Now, when we also think about execution, there's like typically two things, and not just execution. Any problem that we think about, there's always process and people. And people is a very difficult uh, but a very interesting set of problems and options that we have as even as PMs. But if you think about process, process is that one thing that sort of aligns across your org or across your company. So as a product manager, maybe the core process that you depend on is involving cross-functional partners. What is the objectives that you're setting yourself up for? What is the company's process aligning to? So different companies have things like OKRs is a great example of how process work. Having people, so people is another big pillar for us. So you have to you're constantly thinking about opportunities that you can create uh, for different people in your team, but also you have to see that how they align with their personal goals. So that is again a different style of execution. How do you do that? Part of execution and part of any team culture is radical candor. So, and I think it makes starting to make more sense in the last couple of years since we've moved remote. Is that how you celebrate victories, how you publicly celebrate, and you want to make sure the positives are celebrated, and when it comes to feedback or candid conversations, it's very private. So I think that culture of radical candor is a core part of execution. It is an execution strategy if you're really trying to give it put it under this broader bucket. So I think I'd really like to talk about this first point, cross-functional partners, and how as product managers we really need to foster that culture of cross-product stakeholders. I think the best, at least personally, what I think is a great framework for this, and something that is so pivotal to sort of empowering execution is I think the OKR structure. Now, different companies have different models of how or different processes that they have, but eventually, I think as product managers, we try to make sure we involve people in our process of execution. So, for example, PRDs. PRDs is something that probably and I really on purpose use the word probably is because PRDs are not product managers' key deliverables. That's just not their single key deliverable. A PRD you cannot really say that a PRD is written by just the PM. A PRD gets tons of inputs. Um, it's probably common for a PM to take the lead on the PRD, but without engineering, without the UX support, you can never really put together a strong PRD. So when we say the objective is to create a PRD, say example for Q2, the the key partners that are involved in that project is just not our PM. It's UX, it's engineering. We need support for various different engineering teams to sort of involve themselves, understand feasibility, give us that inputs to sort of make sure we have a really strong PRD. No PRD is written by a PM sitting on his or her desk and saying, "Hey, I'm gonna type it down and this is it. Let's go, build it out." It really doesn't work that way. But at the same time, if you are a designer, still the same thing. Probably most commonly, the UX team is going to take lead, but it's still going to have PM support. It's still going to have engineering involvement. The reviews are going to happen. All these key stakeholders will still have lots of inputs that they want to give you at every point of contact where we have, with the broader team. So I think what I'm really trying to, say here is that one, as PMs, we don't 100% control uh, execution. It's just not us. We have this broader team that we need to pull in together. We really need to, put forth that culture of, hey, execution is it is this broader part. It is one of those key pillars, and we need to foster this culture that, hey, let's bring in more people. It's just not a PM's responsibility. PM could be that one person. If there was just one person that you could name as who was responsible for it, maybe, yeah, let's have a PM there. Let the PM drive. Let her be responsible for making sure all these teams are involved together. But I think it should always and always make sure that, it is everyone's business. It's just not a PM's business. So when we think about what is it that we want to like promote as an alliance, we are sitting today in the product-led alliance. There is this culture of learning. We want to learn something. We want to execute something. We want to make sure our products and our processes are much more efficient. As every product manager here today is hoping to take this one thing away from any keynote or any panel that you're attending, is that what is it that I can take back? So what is this alliance really promoting? I think we want to say, as product managers, we need to make space. We need to make space for everyone in our, not just immediate teams, but every team that we work with. We need to make space for them. We need to make everyone responsible for it. We need to build that culture around execution, because execution is that one key thing. You could have a brilliant strategy, brilliant idea, but if it's not executed, then it's something that you've done, but it's not what the core idea was, or what the original passion for that idea was. If you're not given it your 100%, you don't know how it's been executed. So I think that is what I really want to make sure. It's everybody's business, making sure wherever you're in your career, promote that, nurture that culture around yourself, that it's just not you, but we need to build a culture of execution. And thank you so much for being on this keynote with me. Happy to answer any questions that you have, but I just want to say thank you so much. And execution, really, let's hone this down. Caitlin, I think you're on mute.
I am. Yeah, thanks for noticing. Thanks so much. That was a great talk. Any questions anyone's got, please pop them in the chat. I can see we've got one here, which says, Sumitra mentioned the input structure as a PM is subjective and sort of has variables on how it affects the output of a team to meet the OKRs or equivalent. I'd like to know what her own sort of structure looks like at Zoom, and if there are any examples she can cite.
Sure. So there have been companies that I've worked with which had a very strong OKR culture, a very OKR. So by strong OKR culture, I mean a culture where OKRs are sort of a direct line to your performance and the goals that you've set yourself up with your manager and your broader vision and things like that. How much you've participated in these goals, how many key OKRs you've delivered on? What was the lead? Different metrics like this. Uh, and that was great too, because that's a very data driven approach of what your goals are, what you've achieved. It is a direct line to say, hey, in this project, 5 key OKRs have led so many things, different things like that. In some other companies, not so much. But as a PM, I think we all have. So let's take the example of just doing a PRD. We have a framework. We know some key user stories, but then there's this broader team. You bring in the engineers, you bring in the design, you want to see the feasibility, you want to understand what is it that we can do. We do the P0s, P1s, whatever, P0s, whatever that is. But as PMs, you want to make sure that every time the right team is taking the lead on something. So even if you don't have a very open OKR structure, it is as a PM who is driving that execution to make sure the right people are involved. So that is why I say OKR culture or not. OKR is a good example. Let's have it. Let's work on it. But end of the day, it still has to be everyone's business. So how you do that is subjective. Doesn't matter. Make it an Excel sheet. Let's put everyone's names down there and let's say, hey, this is the sheet. Nominate yourself. Doesn't matter. And it's great that you asked about Zoom. Zoom doesn't have an explicit OKR culture, but every team that I lead, I make sure that there is a version of or some version of OKR culture in those teams, because it just makes people that much more responsible for their actions, but also makes it that much more easy to track progress, to track goals for them.
Great, thank you. We've got another question here which says, how do you involve XFN teams and
cross-functional teams?
Okay. Much as cross-functional teams, and sorry about that. And they have so much else to do and so little time.
So we have a lot to do, but if we have less time to do, that means we have not yet involved that one key person that can free up that time. That's why I say it's not about delegation, it's about bringing the right people in. It is not a scale of how good your abilities were in sort of delegation, but it's about bringing the right people who can take that responsibility. It is a culture that you have to foster. It will not happen right away. Involving cross-functional teams can mean different things. You could probably set up a summit. You are starting a project, you bring in everybody you think this is responsible, right from engineering to go to market, product marketing. You bring in everyone into that fold and you sort of involve this broader team. Then when you involve people, then there's someone who's like, hey, this is what I want to do. You need to talk and present your vision in such a way that it becomes everybody's business. Everybody wants to be part of that. You are not being single-handedly asked to move that, and that is not a bad thing. It is not taking away your power as a PM. It is bringing you more power because you are working with this broader team.
Great. And we've got one more question that's just come in from Ken, who says, how do you manage expectations from multiple stakeholders at the same time?
That's a great question. So expectations management goes up and down. So you need to manage both directions. The broader the team that you bring in right away, making sure that the information and the knowledge that you have about a specific product and a problem is brought to this larger team or this larger forum of key partners that you've set yourself up for, then managing those expectations becomes a lot easier because everybody is aware of what is it that we can do, what is it that is not feasible and not possible at this time. So we bringing everyone onto that same page very, very earlier on in the product execution roadmap is key there.
Great. I think that is all the questions from the chat, and we are at time. So thank you so much for your talk, and to all our attendees as well for tuning in and for your questions there. Actually, we just have one more question come in. we'll squeeze this in at the end from Monica, who says, how do you ensure cross-functional alignment when OKRs are tied to different aspects of the mission and aren't always linear?
Exactly. So that's a great question. So when they are not linear, that means so the OKR framework is sort of helps us tie this piece in. OKR framework allows you to assign weights to each of those key responsibilities and objectives that you've set yourself up for this product project. So when you try to start tracking down OKRs for each specific aspect of a product execution, even though it is cross-functional, it sort of aligns with some weight that has been assigned to your growth, your goals, and your broader orgs. They say maybe you're a designer and there's a different weight that you can assign to it. So think of this as like a stack ranking system within OKRs. The logistics of it should depend on how your organization or your company is looking at these OKRs. But if you are starting to foster that culture afresh, do talk to your key stakeholders, like the engineering leads, design managers, to make sure you're setting this up your team, setting them up for success, but also setting a proper weight to each of those OKRs. It is a difficult and painfully long process to set that up initially for a team, but once it gets going, uh, you can get really creative with the way you want to assign weights and what is it that you want to achieve through OKRs.
Great, thank you so much, Smita. And yeah, thanks for our attendees for your questions and for tuning in. That was a great session. So yeah, if you want to continue the conversation, you can connect with Smita or jump back onto the PLA Slack channel as well to carry on discussion. But yeah, thank you everyone, and stay with us for the rest of the day. I'll see you all soon.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you everyone for those amazing questions and also participating in here. Appreciate it. Thank you. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye.